Life will test you. It won't knock politely, it'll kick the door in and demand to know who you are. It asks, will you shrink when pain shows up? Will you surrender when the odds are stacked against you? Because this life, it's a fight for territory, and once you stop fighting for what you want, what you don't want takes over. Today, you're going to hear from a man who refused to be defined by a diagnosis, who rose from poverty, rejection, and pain to inspire millions. This isn't just a story about surviving cancer, it's a story about refusing to die before you're dead. This is Les Brown, and this is about remembering who you really are. You have something special. You have greatness within you. Hi, I'm Les Brown, and I want to talk to you about this place where we are. Sunday is Easter, and this time of the year is about new beginnings. Remember, it seemed like it was just yesterday when it was January the 1st and we made resolutions. Studies indicate that only 8 out of 100 people kept their resolutions and made the goals and dreams they set for themselves become a reality. But there are 92% that did not do that. They forgot it as fast as they claimed it. But for those of you that are serious, my message is not for everybody. My message is for that 8%. Those are the people that are serious. He that hath shall get, and he that hath not, even that which he has shall be taken away. I want to talk to people who are ambitious. I want to talk to people who are not willing to settle for life as it is. I want to talk to people who want to live life. It's one thing to survive, but to live, that requires a different set of skills. One thing I'm encouraging you to do, that I'm doing myself, is taking time to work on me and to get to know more about me. Because if you don't know who you really are, as opposed to the kind of person you were before the world got its hands on you, if you don't know that, and you've bought into the culture that is designed to destroy your sense of self, when you don't have a sense of self, when you don't have a strong identity that takes away your purpose and the meaning of your life, that puts you on a path of self-destructive behavior. That's why you see so many young people and you look at them and say, you know what? Aliens do exist, and they don't know how to pull their pants up. So, as you look at yourself, take the time and ask yourself as you are living this life, is this me? Is this working for me? Have you ever been in a relationship that was working for the other person, but it wasn't working for you? You're in a relationship with somebody who's always there when they need you, but when you need them, they can't be found. This is a time for self-awareness. It's a time to elevate your relationships and your knowledge and your skills and the value that you bring. New beginnings. We always have a choice. Every day represents something that we can claim and say, I'm going to make the rest of my life the best of my life. Hey, it's true. At any moment in our lives, we can change directions. I was upset about something, and my business partner said to me, don't get angry. Just be decisive. Don't get angry. Somebody betrayed my trust. Someone that I loved and believed in and had their back. I thought they had mine, and it did not happen that way. Has that ever happened to you? And so I had to rethink the relationships that I have. I had to ask the question, who can I count on, and who should I count out? Because at the end of the day, this thing called life is like an elevator. The higher you go up, you have to stop and let some people off. Who is it in your life, as you just think about it right now, that you need to open the door for and stand there until they get off, so they don't cramp your style, so they don't toxify and pollute your mind with their toxic behavior? Yeah, we have to promise ourselves to hold ourselves to a higher standard. We pray as if everything depends upon God, but work as if everything depends upon us. Those are the words of Armand McLeod. BM, you have something special, a time for new beginnings, to do inventory of yourself, to get access to the unlimited potential that's waiting for you to tap into it. As Dr. Miles Monroe would say, rob the cemetery of your dreams, your gifts, your leadership, your books, your music. Yea, you're here for a reason. There's something that would not be here if you weren't. You are a missing piece of the puzzle. God needed your presence here at this point in time, for our children and our children's children, and for generations yet unborn, a time for new beginnings. What a blessing! We're here all because of God's grace and mercy. I say to you, honor yourself by looking at your life, taking personal inventory, and be honest with yourself. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And decide that you're going to upgrade your environment. Your environment affects you. Your environment, it can change you. Your environment matters. It begins to affect how you see yourself, and how you see yourself will be represented in your thoughts and your actions and the achievements that you make or you don't make. This is a time that requires new skills, new thinking, and a hunger to live your greatest life. 2 bonus questions to Mr. Les Brown. You've had to overcome so many different challenges in your life, as a father, a husband, someone who's gone through divorce, someone who's lost their job. You've faced so many obstacles, and you could have easily given into excuses or self-imposed limitations. Where did you get the will to overcome, stay focused, and continue toward your goals? Les Brown, I'm so glad you asked that question. One of my favorite books is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He said, when he was in Nazi concentration camps, that the Jews who survived the inexpressible cruelties had either a power greater than themselves they believed in, or some movement they were committed to, or some family member they were determined to see again. What it boiled down to, he said, was this: if you know the why for living, you can endure almost anyhow. If you've got a reason that drives you. My reason was, I made a commitment that I was going to buy my mother a home. Nothing was going to turn me around. I was going to make that happen. That was not some wish. My brothers and sisters didn't share it. They thought I was crazy, but that became my reason for being. I faced a lot of rejections. I just saw it as a part of the process. You have to roll with the punches. I stood where Paul Robeson once stood and said, "Here I stand, for I can do no other." And I was determined that I was going to find a way through speaking to earn enough money to take care of my mother, who was suffering from breast cancer. I had promised her when I was a kid, "You'll never go into a nursing home." She used to work in them and said she never wanted to be in one. I said, "I promise. That won't be your destiny." When my sister called and said, "Leslie, are you sitting down?" I asked, "What's wrong with Mama?" She told me Mama had breast cancer. I said, "I'll be there tomorrow." She said, "But you just got elected." I said, "I enjoy politics, but I love Mama." She said, "There are a lot of good nursing homes." I said, "Please don't touch her." "I'll be there tomorrow." I caught a plane the next morning. When I rang the doorbell, a friend of hers named Miss Milder opened the door and said, "Oh my God, Leslie is here." And I could hear my mother say, "I knew he would come." You have to have something that drives you. When others give up, surrender, throw in the towel. Something calls you deeper into yourself, where you say, "I don't feel no ways tired. I'm going to get it done." That makes you unstoppable. I was there. I took care of her. I bought her that home. You've got to find something that pulls you into the future. This is the stand that you decide to take with your life. To Mr. Matt Apollo, you've been very transparent about being a husband, then a single father within a very short period of time. Many people use children as an excuse for why they can't do the work required. Coming from the military and having no experience generating life, changing income, where did you get the will to say, "Yes, I'm going to get this done. Even though you had kids to care for as a single parent, Matt Apollo, it came from my parents. They immigrated here from the Philippines. I heard stories about what it took for my mother to get her first job as a nurse at a hospital, $600 a month. My father was a tour guide in the Philippines and basically sold himself a free plane ride to America, getting into Indiana University. I thought every generation has this great decision. I felt this was mine. I had the gift of entrepreneurship, a gift of an insurance license, no college degree, no other options, and I had these three little faces looking at me, expecting a home, activities, football, cheerleading, like any other kid, but I couldn't depend on anyone else. As a single father, I had to make decisions 3 times harder with no financial assistance from the other side. I was one of the rare single fathers with custody of my kids. They didn't ask to be here. I owed them everything, especially an example of what to do in tough times, a work ethic. When I planted my flag in the ground, I wanted them to say, I may not agree with everything Daddy did, but I respect him. I respect his hustle, and now, the older they get, the smarter I become in their eyes. They begin to understand my perspective. That was my future self. I wanted to give them a last name they could be proud of, closest friends. When I found that out, I got all my broke friends out of my life. I said, y'all got to go. Don't go away mad, but y'all got to go. And the other thing he said, Mr. Brown, develop your communication skills, because once you open your mouth, you tell the world who you are. Yeah, and where's James? James, yeah. Questions of what he said was very important. I did a presentation for a major pharmaceutical company, and when I was getting ready to leave, I saw a sign that said Danger Zone, and all of these people lined up to go to this room to do a presentation. And I came in, and I was curious to find out what was going on. And so there were doctors in the room. I was the only one that was not a doctor, except people in the hotel. And so this conference was teaching doctors how to communicate with their patients to encourage them to take their hypertension medication. And if they don't, they will have a stroke, or they can suffer an aneurysm or heart disease. And so I was seated next to the CEO. He came in late. I said, excuse me, sir. I said, you are the CEO? He said, yeah. I said, do you have hypertension? He said, yes. And I touched him slightly on his leg. Doctors who touch their patients reduce their chances of having a malpractice suit filed against them by 37%. I said, you have hypertension? He said, yes. I asked him, why do you take your medication? He said, I want to live. Then why do you have a fear-based campaign? Why not have it be the success zone, appeal to people's desire to want to live? He said, you got a point. Can you train doctors? I said, yes. They had all these doctors there. I'm the only one not a doctor, right? The only raisin in a glass of buttermilk. I'm turning red, but y'all can't see it. Anyhow, he said, you got a contract. You never believe what that contract was. For training 500 doctors, you'd never guess. Anybody guess 1 month how much money I get paid? No, small. I just trained them, went to different cities and trained them, but that's good. I like James. You are a prophet, all right. Thank you, though. $640,000, because I asked the right question. I didn't try and sell myself on it. Everybody, you've heard the expression, you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink, right? What we do as coaches and as speakers, we create the want. If you know how to effectively communicate and ask the right questions, then they will want to do business with you, because our goal and objective, when you look at Joe Polish and his whole staff, they're not here to sell you. They're here to serve you, and that's why you show up. The greatest among you will be your servant. So when you ask the right questions, something Zig Ziglar talked about, and your book addresses This, he said, if you give enough people what they want, they'll give you what you want. Maya Angelou said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so when you care enough to ask people questions, so as I train speakers, I say, never let what you want to say get in the way of what your customer wants to hear, and in all thy getting, get understanding. Find out, who are they? What's going on with them? What challenges are they facing? What's keeping them up at night? What have they done before that did not work? And so I sent out a needs assessment. And when I spoke for Merrill Lynch then and talked about these two guys who got together in 1905, one was a businessman, the other was a visionary. As a result of my doing research, people seated in the audience thought that was just one name, and I got another 22 engagements out of that. So you're asking key questions and becoming knowledgeable and finding out things about your client and incorporating those things in your presentation. I spoke for a guy named Brian Buffini. Anybody ever heard of him? He's in real estate. So when I go in to speak, I said, the needs assessment Brian filled out. So I wanted to find out where he was and what he wanted, because he's the man that signs the check. Then I talked to his top performers, and I extracted stories out of them. And so when I got up and was giving my speech, every point that I was going to make in my speech, I create a framework. How I train people to do this, I would use their story as an example. So I said, you know, I was talking to James, and he's been with the company for years, and he said that this place he loves because it helps him to begin to learn more about the customers. That life is a question, and how we live our lives is the answer. And so James said he loves being here because it's a family consciousness. And when I talked to Veronica talked about the day that she was thinking about how she was going through a tough time when a family member died, but everybody got together and gave her this strength to weather that Red Sea, to weather that storm. And when I got to the end of my speech, when I was getting a standing ovation, I said, I'm so glad to be able to see you. And I started walking off, and I said, oh, by the way, I'm not too busy for referrals. That's his theme. We're never too busy for referrals. I got 56 speaking engagements. Wow, wow. But guess what, James? He said, wait a minute, Mr. Brown. He said, this is November. He said, whatever number of engagements that you have for the rest of the year, I want them. I'll write the check for them. And at that time, I was charging $35,000 an hour. But he paid for every speaking engagement for the rest of the year because I did research on him. I interviewed the top performers. What is it about you that's different than the rest of the people here? I found out his mission statement. I found out how he met his wife. I said, you know, Brian, one of the things I know about you, when you met your wife Martha, you became very spiritual and said, the Lord is my shepherd. I see what I want. I learned from my mother when they said to her at the M&M cafeteria, ma'am, I'm so sorry. You can't do this work anymore, being on your feet all day long. I know you're giving it your best effort, but Mr. Morrison, who loves Mama very much, says it's just too much for you now. And he gave her a check, gave her a bonus, and said, wouldn't have to replace you. And I learned something from my mother. When she came home, she was ironing, and she sang to herself. My mother used to sing at nightclubs. But this one song, when she was ironing and preparing us for school the next day, was one of our favorite songs. Fly the ocean in a silver plane, see the jungle when it's wet with rain, just remember, darling, you belong to me. I used to love to hear her sing that song. She would always sing that while she was ironing. And then she got an idea. Wait, I'm not working at the M&M cafeteria anymore downtown Miami. I can find out neighbors who need some ironing done. I'll iron for them, and they'll pay me. I'll find neighbors who would like to have a sweet potato pie. I'll bake some sweet potato pies and sell slices of sweet potato pie for a dime or a quarter. I'll cook for them, and so what I learned from Mama, she didn't miss a beat. When you've got a goal, when things happen, when there are interruptions, when life has been snatched out from under you, don't miss a beat. Find a way to restart your life. Find a way to do something else. See, the things that allowed me to become successful as a speaker, people ask me all the time. And sometimes I would vary how I respond. How did you get here? How'd you overcome the odds? What did you have to do? Now, one of the things I did, and I want you to keep this in mind, be stubborn about your goals, but flexible about your approach. I had people with PhDs and MBA, and we would walk around this big park in Detroit talking to each other about our goals and dreams, and something happened. I looked at them because of their credentials, because of their education, because of their college training and corporate experience, and you know something, they quit. You know why? They knew more than me. So sometimes you have to be intelligently ignorant. Based upon the approach that we were using, we failed at making a breakthrough, so they gave themselves a limited time looking for a sign. If you want to create something, if there's something you want to do, you got to give it some time. A watched pot never boils. You got to give it some time. You've got to be willing to put in the work. And particularly in multi-level marketing, you don't want to raise your hand and look to see how well you're doing for a minimum of 2 years. When a home is being built or a building, they spend a lot of time on just the foundation, and so they stopped showing up for our walk. And pretty soon I found myself walking by myself. Let me share something with you. When you have goals and dreams and you're going in a certain direction, it's lonely at the top. You're going to find yourself in certain situations by yourself. I can tell you this. They stopped coming out to walk with me, and they went back looking for a job. That was not me. That was not an option for me. That's a non-negotiable. No, I'm going to speak. I'm going to find a way. So you have to be stubborn about your goals and flexible about your approach. And so when it didn't happen as soon as they wanted it to happen, they stopped. I kept going, and that's what you've got to do. Don't stop. Keep going. That's what my mother did. She lost a job at the M&M cafeteria. She couldn't stand on her feet all day long every day because of arthritis in her ankles and in her knees. And so she didn't miss a beat. She started ironing and washing our neighbors' clothes and baking sweet potato pies and cooking for some of them. Don't stop. Stay busy. How did she do it? How did she raise 7 children by herself? I just believed the Lord will make a way somehow. And I'm saying to you, if you keep going, if you keep looking for a way, where there's a will, there's a way. If you keep moving, if you keep falling forward, if you keep getting back up, something's going to happen. Bob Marley said something I like. You never know how strong you are until being strong is all you have. You never know how strong you are until being strong is all you have. It's your only option, and you'll discover, if you don't panic, if you don't run, you'll discover you are stronger than you give yourself credit for being. Don't surrender. Don't give in. Just keep moving forward. Stay busy moving in the right direction, looking, opening doors, knocking on doors, finding a way out of nowhere. And here's something else. Because you don't know what to do, so what? Figure it out. Everything that exists. At one time, nobody knew what to do. I remember as a kid we would say, oh, you got as much chance doing that as a man going to the moon, to illustrate the impossibility of that. We don't say that now. Somebody figured it out. Somebody said, wait a minute, there's got to be a way. Territory. What do you mean by that? That the things that you get in life. You know, Frederick Douglass said, we might not get everything that we fight for, but everything we get it will be a fight. And I love the quote that life is a fight for territory, and once you stop fighting for what you want, what you don't want will automatically take over? Like getting ready to come here to see you, I want to just first of all thank you for the great work that you're doing. I watch you and I study you, and you have had some incredible guests who have impacted my life. In preparing to come here, I'm being treated by Cancer Centers of America for fourth stage cancer, which I've been kicking for 27 years. And I've been working on getting a six-pack before getting here. I still got one pack, and I've been working to get some muscles so I could wear my T-shirt. But they weren't large enough, so I wore a long sleeve. That's amazing, man. Talk to me about cancer. You've had such an upbeat attitude about it. It's really pretty extraordinary. Was that your initial reaction? Did you go through a trough of despair when you first got diagnosed? How have you framed that? Dr. Alfred Gozin, who has since passed, was a very unusual guy. He told me, "Mr. Brown, you have cancer." I said, "Can you give me a second opinion?" He said, "Yes, and you're ugly too." I said, "Oh my God." So I didn't have a chance to have fear because, you know, those 3 words, "you have cancer," are 3 of the most feared words in 7 different languages. I saw it as a fight, and from that time to this time my PSA was 2/400, that's prostate's specific antigen, and now it's below 0. It had metastasized to 7 areas of my body, which was a good thing because 7 is my lucky number. No, I never was fearful that I was going to die from it. I think I read something by Dr. Norman Cousins. He wrote a book called The Biology of Hope, and he talked about the fact that when something happens to you, you don't deny it. You defy it. And I was defiant. I'm going to beat this. I'm going to handle this. Many times when something happens to people, they embrace it from a place of fear, and it takes them out. L.C. Robinson said, "Things may happen to you, and things may happen around you, but the most important things are the things that happen in you. And you have to stand up inside yourself and deal with it and handle it." Fortunately, that never bothered me, but I had sciatica pain that had me speaking in unknown tongues and in a wheelchair for several months. Speaking from a wheelchair, it was something that I dealt with that frightened me. Will this ever end? It was 24 hours. I lost a lot of sleep. It was exhausting, going from all types of specialists in and out of the country. In just one day it stopped, and I'm glad that I'm past that. When you go through some stuff, you go through certain things that you don't want ever to see again. And that's one I don't ever want to see again. But fear has not been the biggest challenge that I faced with the things that I've been dealing with in terms of my health. Well, talk to me about the process that you go through mentally. There have been a few times in your life, in getting to know your story, where there seem like really key inflection points. Being told that you were educable mentally retarded, for sure, is something that would define most people, and they'd have a hard time escaping that. Being told that you have cancer, that it's stage 4, that they don't know how to treat it, that's something that consumes most people. How do you build that resilience? Maybe by the time you get to cancer, you've already done so much work. So I get maybe how that one, you're protected by the mechanisms you've built. But in the beginning, how did you crawl out from under the labels that people were putting on you? The easiest thing I've done was to get out from under the labels and to live the life that I live. The most difficult thing I've ever done was to believe that I can do it. What's the difference? The difference is that when you don't know what's impacting you, and it's something that's holding you down and you're not aware of it, The great anthropologist Margaret Mead was in a restaurant in London, and a guy was serving her and said, "There's several Americans here tonight." And she said, "Is that right?" He said, "Yeah, let me know when you serve them dessert. I'll tell you exactly how many are here." He said, "Oh, you couldn't possibly." So he came back and said, "Okay, I've done it." She got up, walked around, and came back. She said, "There are around 25 here." He looked at the roster. "How did you know that?" She said, "In America, we eat dessert differently than you. You eat it from the crust toward the tip. We eat it from the tip toward the crust. When you eat a slice of pie, how do you eat yours?" "Oh, definitely, yeah. From the tip back to the crust for sure. Okay." So there are things, in my situation, when you live in a dominant culture that is designed to destroy your sense of self and your belief in yourself, you have to learn ways in which you can begin to connect with this power that you have within yourself to handle where you are. The key is to be constantly in a perpetual process of discovering the truth of who you are and fighting constantly to look for ways in which you can escape the inner conversation. I speak to audiences around the world, and I train speakers as well. I tell them that when you speak, there's an objective that you want to achieve, because how people live their lives is a result of the story they believe about themselves. So, you as a speaker, when you speak in this program, when people see you, what you do is distract, dispute, and inspire. You distract people from their current story with your guest and the questions that you ask. Through the process of the ongoing questioning and the way in which they respond and the things they have learned, you dismantle their current belief system and inspire them to create a new chapter with their lives. And so, that's an ongoing process of constantly interrupting that conversation. What psychologists call your self-explanatory style, because life is going to beat up on you in so many ways. And many things they come back, negative thoughts and how you feel about yourself. They don't die. They come back once you stop doing the maintenance work on your mind, listening to motivational messages, going to seminars and workshops, spending time quietly listening to the still, small voice within. Who am I really? Is this really me? Am I giving my best? Am I just reflecting what's around me? Because all of these various things affect how we show up in life. So, having a strategy to continuously find our reaching higher. Robert Scheller had a book. It's not very popular, but I loved it, called Peak to Peak, P-E-A-K to P-E-K, because you're constantly reaching higher to find out and discover your better self. Yeah, I want to talk about that difference between you have the notion of figuring out who you really are, and I assume you mean beneath the labels. So people are telling me that I'm not smart, but that's not necessarily true. So I want to get down to that layer of what I'm really capable of. But you also talk about how we have this profound ability to change, and you talk about people needing to be relentless, to relentlessly pursue that growth. I find that juxtaposition incredibly interesting where you've got. There is a real you, which maybe you would call potential, and then there is the actualized potential. Is that how you see it, or is there something else? Absolutely. There's a real you. Richard Wright said it best. He said, "The impulse to dream has slowly been beaten out of me through the experiences of life." So, when you live in a culture that is designed to destroy your sense of self, to where you are marginalized, where you have a feeling of being hopeless and powerless, and you're terrorized. I remember going downtown with my mother, and I saw a water fountain. I think I was about 5 years old, and I ran and I drank from the water fountain. All of a sudden, she grabbed me by the neck and said, "Don't you ever do that again." and started punching me in the back of my head, in my face, and got me down on the ground. Was punching me relentlessly. I said, "Mama, please, it's me. Mama, it's me," with this crazy look in her eyes. Then a white policeman came, and he had a nightstick in his hand. He was hitting it in his left hand. He said, "Okay, all right. You beat that little boy enough. Now I won't have to beat him with this nightstick." And he walked away laughing, and my mother broke down and started crying and saying, "Lizzie, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." I said, "Mama, why'd you beat me like that?" She said, "That water fountain's for whites only, son, and if that cop had hit me with his nightstick, he would have had to kill me. I'd have fought him till he killed me, and I'd have left you and your brothers and sisters by themselves to raise themselves. I'm so sorry." In the book Learned Optimism, Seligman talks about the fact that between ages 0 and 5, we determine what's available to us and what's not available to us, and so that was a defining moment. I knew there were certain things I could not do, certain places I could not go. They used to have signs on Miami Beach that said, "Jews, dogs, and coloreds not allowed." And so now you have to operate within the constraints of the dominant society and the things they've created for you. And it's a challenge to see yourself beyond that, and to work to get outside of that even after those laws have changed. Because that has become so much a part of you, you unconsciously operate within the parameters of what has been put in place. Like when you're driving on the expressway, the 405, and you get off on an exit that you weren't going in that direction. But you unconsciously did it because you've done it so many times. Many people, because they're not making a conscious, deliberate, determined effort to think outside of what life has thrown at them, they end up doing the same thing over and over and over again. Einstein said, "The thinking that has brought me this far has created some problems that this thinking can't solve." And so, through relationships, through reading, through studies, through goals and dreams beyond your comfort zone, it allows you to begin to live out of your imagination as opposed to out of your history. Disney said, "The imagination is a preview of what's to come." And so, as a kid, I dreamed a lot about taking care of my mother. I used to go with her to work to clean homes, and she kept children and she cooked for these wealthy families. My mother could bake a sweet potato pie so good, you couldn't eat it with your shoes on. You had to take your shoes off so you could wiggle your toes. And I used to look at these big, beautiful mansions and said, "Mama, what is it, Lizzie? When I become a man, I'm going to buy you a big, beautiful home just like this. You don't have to do this." I said, "I know, but you didn't have to adopt us either, and you did, and so I'm here with you because of two women. One gave me life, the other one gave me love. God took me out of my biological mother's womb and placed me in the heart of my adopted mother, and because of her example and my love for her and the passion that I felt in my heart, I've got to do something to make her proud. I've got to do something to put myself in position to be able to take care of her." That drove me. There will be moments when life hits you so hard, you'll forget your own name. Moments when fear whispers louder than hope, and your past tries to chain you to who you used to be. But listen to me. You are more than your mistakes, more than your diagnosis, more than the labels, the trauma, or the systems built to break you. You don't deny what you've been through, you defy it, because the fight isn't over until you say it's over, and your story, it's not done being written. So stand up inside yourself, speak to the greatness in you, and make the decision today that your life will be a monument to resilience, to love, and to power that can't be stopped. This is your time. This is your fight. And you've already won because you're still here.